The Illusion of Us, Chapter 2, page 26. The Nag Hammadi scriptures and other Hermetic writings bridge a gap in understanding of so much of our history and identity. They speak about a false illusion that has been created here, which creates a veil over our perceptions and awareness. The Emerald Tablets and Gnostic writings explain in detail about who we really are as divine light beings who are simply blocked off from knowing our true potential and connections back to the Creator of all. The answers to our history and who we are can be found by understanding these Hermetic writings and relating them directly to modern string theory. Only through the collaboration of these great teachings with quantum science can the full picture finally begin to show itself. There are countless other writings, sculptures, and pyramids scattered across the ancient world that make up the fragments which all lead to the bigger story. Scattered beneath dense jungles and towering above searing deserts, many of these ancient cultures knew they had to protect the truth somehow so that it would survive to see the light of a new time. The greatest story ever told had to be protected for those brave adventurers and thinkers of the future, willing to challenge it all in the name of furthering humanity. In reading this timeline, understand that I do not wish to mislead or confuse, but only to connect with what has already been lost to us. Before we travel further down the rabbit hole, I want to leave you with a famous quote by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, which is meant to be a reassuring voice of reason when all seems lost. Quote, "Once you eliminate the impossible, whatever remains, no matter how improbable, must be the truth." End quote. Let those words guide you as you decide your own version of reality. In order to arrive at truth, we must first cast out the deeply seated pessimist inside of our ego and objectively consider the information I present. I do not simply throw random ideas together or create a false narrative which isn't directly based on a wealth of connected breadcrumbs of information. In figuring out the true story of us, I was constantly in a state of amazement and awe in learning about this story. Countless times I simply could not believe or accept the ideas I was coming across, and I don't expect you to right away either. It wasn't until I understood the entire picture through the uncovering of mountains of evidence to prove it to myself. I had to return to ideas over and over to build a foundation of knowledge in order to finally have that moment of understanding which is necessary. I can assure you, though, I would not write anything here that I did not believe was truth. We should embrace the incredible history preceding us and not let ego ever rule our judgment. There are always two sides of a story, and I hold no grievances against any of those who came here. We must move past the idea that we are alone in the galaxy, let alone the universe. There are millions of habitable planets with intelligent life, scattered in the billions of solar systems surrounding suns that allow habitable climates. Think of suns as enormous mothers, giving life to their small planets revolving around them, pulled in by their giant gravitational radiance. New suns are born that create entirely new solar systems of their own, and then they eventually die. It is a delicate balance of birth and rebirth that replays itself out over and over in the universe. Understand that the entire universe is a connected living organism, spreading its branches out like a tree and supporting their continued evolution of its own awareness through human consciousness. There has been a monumental history predating us that we only have bits and pieces for what occurred, with an almost complete suppression of information, except for the scraps which have been lucky enough to remain. This history of humanity is a timeline based on all the evidence we have, built on the backs of the brave minds and researchers that preceded me. Without their courage and sacrifice, none of this would be possible. Remember, history is always written by the victors, and that very fact clouds its purity. Put aside all predetermined ideas of what we have been told is our history, and try and contemplate this for a moment. Envision a timeline of advanced intelligent life, spanning millions of years in parts of our galaxy and multitudes of others. If you were to place where human beings fit in, it would be but a minuscule blip in this record of time. Just think of all that has happened in the universe before humanity even existed. Now, imagine if a planet so incredibly special and unique that is worth traveling across the cosmos to reach was being fought over for control. You will have to decide for yourself what is real in life and what is simply just a distraction of the truth. Let me take you on a journey down an alternate timeline for Earth, and one that may resonate deep inside you, awakening a spark of wonder. In 1849, a spectacular discovery was made by Austin Henry Layard in Mosul, Iraq, where 7 clay tablets were found, known as the Enuma Elish. The tablets contain symbols etched in stone, known as cuneiform writings, which predate nearly all other known historical records and gives a rare glimpse into the unaltered records of the past. The tablets tell the creation story of Earth out of the bowels of a planet called Tiamat, and a great battle in the heavens by these Anunnaki gods. According to the ancient writings, far in our distant past, a smaller invader solar system became trapped within our central sun and led to disastrous collisions and turmoil during each perihelion pass. The planet Tiamat was struck by an unknown planet or moon and led to the eventual formation of Earth in the asteroid belt known to these ancients as the Hammered Bracelet. After the Earth cooled enough to support life, it became seeded with prokaryotic organisms and later eukaryotes from advanced civilizations who saw a great vision and plan for the planet. The process of complex life appearing seems to follow a timeline for the evolution of the planet and not of the macroevolution of the species residing there. What that means is that as a planet's climate becomes more favorable and less hostile, it becomes a candidate for more advanced life being brought there. The physical change of a species over time, based on its unique environment, is known as microevolution. We must throw out the incorrect and antiquated model of evolution presented by Darwin to forge a new understanding of how complex life begins. Consider the fact that Earth is a part of a vast number of habitable planets in our Milky Way galaxy, and beyond that contain rich amounts of life. As advanced cultures all over the universe developed the capabilities of interplanetary travel, there was a need to design a place where species and information could be stored safely. These planets, with optimal climates and environments, supported countless numbers of species. The Earth was considered one of the most unique planets in the galaxy and visited by countless advanced civilizations. It was where the plan first started and were the hallmark of what was later known as the Living Library on Earth. The Living Library on Earth was a collaboration of plant and animal DNA brought here from all over the cosmos by advanced sentient civilizations. The Earth was designed as a free will zone where important genetics could be contributed and protected. Careful planning was done alongside the pre-existing species on the planet to create a spectacular living library of life that filled every corner of this world. This collaboration exceeded all expectations, and the living library became a jewel of shimmering light in our solar system. The Earth was chosen for the developing human species to evolve under the watchful eyes of these ancient guardians. Humanity was an experiment in housing frequency and unique DNA within a special humanoid body. Everything was going according to plan until certain beings came here and decided they wanted some of the resources that the colony of Earth provided. Because this planet is in a free will zone, no one was allowed to own it. Planets similar to Earth exist all over the universe in various stages of their own evolutionary development. Ancient records state that around 250,000 years ago, a group of advanced beings known as the Anunnaki traveled to the Earth from an unknown location. They came here for specific reasons and greatly disrupted the timeline of Homo sapiens. We know of this arrival period in history from numerous ancient texts, primarily from the ancient Sumerian civilizations, who left behind detailed accounts in thousands of cuneiform tablets, such as the Atrahasis and Sumerian kingdoms. So what did the Sumerians know about our solar system? We find evidence in a Sumerian cylinder seal known as VA-243, which contains a highly detailed drawing of the planets in our solar system, including not one recognized by modern astronomers. Nearly all information surrounding the existence and location of a mysterious planet in the outer reaches of our solar system has been carefully guarded by NASA and other agencies. The truth about Planet X has been heavily suppressed and confused with the term Nibiru, which actually represents the crossing of energy to reach Kundalini. Robert Harrington, the head astronomer at the United States Naval Observatory, became focused on finding the mysterious planet X after observing gravitational disruptions in the orbits of Neptune and Uranus. Upon observing the planet on the IRIS probe in 1983, Harrington traveled to the southern tip of New Zealand where it is believed he observed the incoming planet on an 8-inch telescope in 1993. Shortly after this discovery, Robert Harrington was found dead of cancer, and all of his work was immediately debunked as simply mathematical error. The truth behind this planet represents one of the greatest secrets kept from humanity of all time. The arrival and influence from these various advanced cultures on Earth does not follow a simple linear narrative or understanding. The complex timeline for the history of this planet represents countless cultures that have been on and off Earth for millions of years. Due to Earth's relative location in the Milky Way galaxy and the overabundance of life and rare elements, this planet has always been intrinsically important to countless sentient civilizations who traveled here. There is overwhelming evidence to support this information for those who are brave enough to challenge the tightly controlled view given for the past. The truth behind our history can be found from within the Great Pyramids of Giza to the ancient monolithic cities buried beneath jungles and hundreds of feet of seawater. In all of these ancient human cultures, sometimes separated by thousands of miles of ocean, archaeologists have discovered countless, nearly identical statues and monuments, all depicting various gods who traveled to Earth. The time for debate over the existence of intelligent extraterrestrial life is over. We must now look towards the influences they have had on past human civilizations in order to find evidence for the real story. Ancient sites like that of Göbekli Tepe in Turkey prove without a doubt the existence of advanced human cultures thousands of years before our current history books are willing to admit. Furthermore, in the timeline we are taught in school, human beings who were living more than 10,000 years ago were portrayed as slowly evolving and still considered hunters and gatherers. This conclusion is not based on a collaboration of all evidence in an unbiased manner, but rather deliberately selected evidence which funnels into a predetermined narrative. The air needs to be cleared from the status of this information, as this is no longer pseudoscience. If these cultures had advanced tools and technologies long before we are told they possessed them, then it should be realized that they received this knowledge from beyond our planet. When searching for truth, the answer is almost always the result of what fits together in a sequence, regardless of where that path leads. The Nag Hammadi Library and the Book of Enoch give us a rare glimpse into the unaltered writings of what the Bible would have contained. These lost texts give us a far more complete understanding of who the gods were and their purpose here. The Book of Enoch talks extensively about visitors called the Watchers who resided on Earth and never left. The ancient Sumerian people refer to these visitors as the Anunnaki, which means those who from heaven to earth came. All of these ancient writings and tablets paint us a clear picture of who these gods really were and to separate out what has become simply a myth to the human species. Even in the modern book of Genesis, a giant hybrid race of humans known as the Nephilim is mentioned, yet few even question its meaning or who they were. All of this ancient information paints a story for the past events on Earth and who was here. Throughout the Bible, these beings with far advanced technology are always considered gods and thought of as divine. Yet this wording would imply that there are multiple gods that somehow control the earth, and instead of questioning this logic, humans have openly accepted it as just religious stories. All throughout history, stories have been told and carried down through generations, mentioning these gods frequently. These elaborate stories have become nothing more than mythology to the modern human race. Many of these tales are represented as exaggerated metaphors and taken at simple face value. However, there is almost always an element of truth in them as well. People think of dragons, wizards, and giants as nothing more than a laughable fairy tale, even though these depictions have turned up in stories and drawings all over the world. Many of the older Asian cultures, like the Japanese, have worshipped the dragon from their earliest records and have placed it on their official flags and banners to commemorate them. Despite all of these commonly used motifs cropping up virtually everywhere today, the vast majority of people still just see them as nothing more than fantasy. The gods that came here were more than 1,000,000 years ahead of human evolution and possess such advanced knowledge and technology that they can exist in higher dimensions that humans cannot even perceive. These beings have the ability to become physical here, but can instead choose to stay in higher realms and force others to do their bidding. Similar to our sensory perception of a radio wave, since it is outside our dimensional awareness, it is invisible to us. The visitors used advanced technology to keep Earth in a specific vibrational frequency, allowing for the total manipulation of reality within the developing human species. That is how the human farm was able to ultimately remain hidden from the collective of our awareness. We understand so little about the universe in our small three-dimensional world, and yet our naivete causes us to be blinded from all the truth through stubborn ignorance. With quantum physics dictating well over 10 dimensions, the time for expanding our perceptual possibilities is long overdue. Humanity's view of reality is built upon the polluted associations from the past, and this leads to the illusion for how we define it now. For hundreds of thousands of years, there has been an ancient dispute over the right to free will within a consciously developing species. The hierarchical system of evolution in the cosmos for intelligent beings governs nearly all decisions for those species that exist in dimensions below them. The rights to the ownership of Earth and disrupting its important timeline led to disputes for control of the planet and its resources. Earth and its living library was considered extremely valuable and important to many of the sentient civilizations who helped design it. One side cared deeply for the future of this library and the freedoms of the human species, while the other for control of resources and domination of the planet. That is why the concept of light battling against darkness is used throughout our culture. Light is always associated with the freedom of information and spiritual growth, while darkness is associated with the suppression of consciousness through domination. These visitors conquered light, and the earth became a place of darkness under their control for hundreds of thousands of years. Humanity is now finally beginning to emerge out of this darkness that has consumed so much of our true identity and awareness. Some of the evidence that exists for past conflicts in our solar system can still be seen on some of the planets and moons around Earth. Mars is an example of the fallout of one of these devastating wars, which occurred long before humanity on Earth even existed. The Martian atmosphere was obliterated from nuclear weapons, and an entire planet turned into a radioactive wasteland. Strong indicators for this hypothesis come from probe analysis that was done on the planet's atmosphere, which has shown abnormally high amounts of uranium and thorium, elements which are present together only after a nuclear explosion. Further evidence can be seen with the red coloring of the surface soil, largely due to the immense amounts of radioactive isotopes covering the entire planet. The aftermath of these explosions on Mars resulted in the loss of nearly all of the water on the planet, which quickly evaporated into space, leading to almost all life ceasing to exist there. Imagine a planet once rich with life, with large oceans and advanced cultures, now existing as nothing more than an echo of the past. That is the horror that can occur on a planet from nuclear annihilation. Remnants of ancient civilizations have been seen and mostly covered up. If we want to look at what an apocalyptic alternate future for Earth could be, we simply look at Mars. Take a moment to gain a little perspective on our current situation on Earth and the many similarities that come up between the two timelines. Will the human race, with all of its ego and domination for natural resources, lead to its own mutual destruction and become nothing more than a lost memory like Mars? That future is dangling on the edge of our own slumbering awareness. That concludes the end of this section. Peace and blessings to you all.